You may be seated. Honorable Ministers, the Special Envoy, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Yes, I want to say that I'm very delighted to have been invited to come here. But I don't know why I was invited. I think it's because, I'm a candidate for the AU chairmanship. And somebody just decided that probably this is a good platform for me to come and share with you people some of my ideas about this issue of climate change. But I'm happy to see an array of delegates who have come from different parts of the continent to our country, Kenya. As you know, they say that this is the cradle of mankind. They're saying that the oldest species of humanoid, the Turkana boy, found here in Kenya. So I just want to say welcome back home. Well, we are talking about climate change, and we just like a stuck gramophone. You go down and round and round because it's the same language we speak year in, year out. But maybe that is a subject for later. For now, I just want to say that it's my pleasure to be part of this great and noble occasion where Africa sits with partners through the platform of African Green Climate Finances, designated National Authorities Network, to discuss climate change and how to respond through accelerated access to climate change, climate finance. We are here to exchange ideas on a common problem, the view to develop a common approach and a common solution. I take note that AFDAN has been established to enhance mobility of climate finance, make it more readily accessible to support Africa in enhancing adaptive capacity and building resilience of our people, both in the rural and urban setups through locally led solutions. I'm aware that AFDAN is already recognized by the Committee of African Heads of States and the government on climate change. This gives it the right leverage to undertake its role. Climate finance has been here with us, but access to the finances remains one of the biggest challenges in responding to climate change. I said that will sound like a stuck gramophone record. Because as you know, I was in COP15 in Copenhagen. I was in COP16 in Cancun in Mexico. I was in Maputo. I was in Paris. Two years ago, I was in Sharm el-Sheikh. From COP15, from Copenhagen to Sharm el-Sheikh, it was the same language. Year in, year out. You got all the time going there to whine, to cry. This is why I was saying that you sound like a stuck gramophone record. The more the things change, the more they remain the same. The continent continues to face some areas of challenges associated with adverse climate change effects. Consequently, the vulnerable segments of our population, particularly the poor in both rural and urban communities, continue to bear the brunt of climate change. As already been said here, that Africa is a victim, not the offender, in this exercise. Africa's emissions is negligible compared to what we are going through globally. Yet you can see that today Africa lives between two twin disasters here. Floods and drought. Year in, year out. This year, this country suffered very severe floods. A lot of infrastructure destroyed. Many people displaced. Up to now, people are still suffering from the consequences of just recent floods. Down there, as we were going through floods here, down the south, there was the drought. They are going through a very severe drought in the south. And this happens across all the continent, year in, year out. So we are victims. Yet the offenders themselves keep on using language. They come and use nice language, but that's all it is. The resolutions are passed, they just ignore. So we need to find a way of forcing implementation of resolutions which are passed. Which means that one such fundamental issue is the promise by the rich countries to play their part and help the countries that contribute the least in greenhouse gas emissions into adaptation. Because of the failure to translate the promises into reality, Africa as a continent still has challenges with access to some of the climate finance sources, such as the Green Climate Fund, Global Environment Facility, Least Developing Countries Fund, Adaptation Fund, Climate Investment Funds, as well as the bilateral and multilateral development partners, which are all well-established avenues for accessing climate finance. Consequently, Africa can only access 4% of the climate finances, which is way below the impactful finance. With the rapid urbanization of our continent and the development trajectory, Africa has an opportunity to chart its own pathways, which will ensure that African cities adapt to climate challenges. Because Africa is urbanizing fairly rapidly now. But urbanization is a global phenomenon. Even in Europe, urbanized. European society was also fairly rural. After the Industrial Revolution, that rural and urban migration started. And it was not forced. It came gradually. But eventually they planned it and they managed to manage their cities well. Here, at independence, new leadership in the continent was completely ignorant of what was going to happen. Immediately after independence in this country, there was rural-urban migration in the 60s. People were coming to the cities. But then the government at that time asked people to go back to land. There was an order by the head of state then that people go back to the land. Rudi mashambani in Swahili. Even songs were coined. Mzee kasema rudi mashambani hakuna kazi. Mzee kasema rudi mashambani hakuna kazi. People went back to the mashamba. They had nothing useful to do. Started again gradually coming back into the cities. But because the government believed that the order was going to be obeyed, there was no planning to respond to this rural-urban migration. People coming up and started putting up temporary shelters to live in. These shelters eventually grew up and they were now christened informal settlements. Read slums. That is how slums begin to grow in most of our urban areas. Today, as we sit here, over 60% or the population you see on the streets there in Nairobi, those who are not Kenyans, live in slums today. Those who are unplanned settlements, where there are no sanitation, there are no roads, there is no electricity, there's no water. In some of those sanitation habitations, the coastal say there's no toilets. There's what they call the flying toilet. The flying toilet is somebody goes, relieves himself in a newspaper, then throws it away. If you are unfortunate to be passing by, that's what greets you. So these are some of the things that we need to deal with on the continent. This is how serious the situation is.